Kutlwana, what do you mean the choice of diction? You mean Christopher's? Beyond temperamental. That's what he says, like beyond. So much drama. You know that Twitter meme with the guy who rips off his shirt and he's like weeping and he falls on his knees and he falls on the ground. Sorry, give. Do you know what I'm saying? But I must say, Christopher, and this is going to be recorded for the record. I personally appreciate the drama. Keep it up. It's what I'm here for. Do you know what I'm saying? So well done, well done. All right, let's start. So yesterday we spoke about the epigraph, and I think as we're going along, I'm going to try and give you some relevant quotes that are going to be important that'll help you sort of write your essay in the finals, in the June exams, for class, and so on. Because literature essays they don't depend heavily, but it's very important that you use relevant quotes from um, from the novel. So, for example, when I read you the epigraph, not the epigraph actually, the chapter before the chapter, when I read you that opening line where there are many houses we pass through during our lives, maybe it's true that they also pass through us. Some of them remain with us and we are able to return to them long after they are gone. You can use one of those lines depending on the relevance of the essay topic, of course. So keep that particular quote in mind, maybe underline it in your novel, okay? Because that one is going to be quite important. Okay. Excuse me, Miles? The opening line to the chapter the author writes called the first dream house. Yeah. Okay. So let's start. Let's have a look at the very first chapter. Okay, so we have spoken about this before we actually started doing the novel. We spoke about how, and this is very, very important, how the novel is written from the perspective of the different characters that are on the farmhouse, okay? That are in the farmhouse. Okay. But also bear in mind that it is still written in third person. So we get Patricia and Beauty and Look Smart's and Richard's points of views, but it's still written in the third person. And I guess one can argue that that helps us to still remove ourselves a little bit from the story and to sort of be outsiders that are looking in to the story. It still allows us to be that, but my, my thespianism. Okay, I need to read this comment. Oh, okay, no, I can't unpack that now, Christopher. Right? I'm just like, when you speak more than one language. Like the other day, I walked into the chemist. I'm closer. I walk into the chemist, and this woman, this lady that works there, says she's trying to say to me, I must put the rack thing on the trolley down so that I can put my stuff in. But she says it in Sutu. And in that moment, my suture wasn't switched on, so I had no idea what she was saying. Like, not a clue. That's what just happened now. I was just like, huh? What? So that's what happens when you speak more than one language. Okay, so what was I saying? I was talking about from each perspective of the characters, but still in third person. So, in a way, we still get insight into each character's point of view, right? But we're still sort of removed. We are still observers as the readers, okay? And we're still very aware that someone else is kind of telling the story, okay? And also, the change of perspective also just gives us a view of the truth. Like I really believe that the truth is made up of different people's perspective. That's why I hate having arguments where we say, I like if I fight because we misunderstood each other and we had a misunderstanding. I don't like ever saying that I'm right and you're wrong or you're right and I'm wrong. I like to talk about how it made me feel and my perspective and then hear your perspective because the truth is somewhere in between. I'm not the one that carries the ultimate truth. Kutlwano, if I'm fighting with Kutlwano, is not the one that carries the ultimate truth. But the ultimate truth is somewhere between your experience and my experience. Does that make sense? So we can even say that in the novel, that the ultimate truth and the ultimate thing that we're going to find out lies somewhere between every one of the characters' interpretation of the truth of what happened, of this big secret. Am I capiching? Making sense to you? Oh wow, Matthew. I'm saying that something. Good Lord, no, what did I say? The truth lies between what? It just close. Warren, do you wanna refine that for us? No. Christopher, while we still have you. Wow, he's gone. Kabir, do you wanna or yeah, go. Go, Andy. Yes. Yeah. So it's kind of in the middle. Like if you're thinking about it like visually, it's in the middle. It's not me that knows the truth. It's not you that knows that knows the ultimate truth. Somewhere between our two experiences is where the truth lies. So at the end of the day, if we have a disagreement, I believe that I will have things that I will need to apologize for, and you will have things that you will need to apologize for in that disagreement. It's not always I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. Okay, so I'm kind of giving you something that you can talk about if it is relevant to to an essay topic. Okay, cool. So chapter one, the very first chapter is from Patricia's perspective. Okay, we meet Patricia. We learn we learn that Patricia is busy packing up the house. It's their last day on the farm, and they have sold the farm to developers. And we also learn that they're packing up and they're about to move. And the first thing that struck me about Patricia is that she is the image of what we talk about when we talk about white privilege, because she talks about how the farm has been in her family for 150 years. Okay, the farm that they're selling, good God, what? Wow. Listen, so my man, so Patricia has been living on this farm for 150 years. No, not 150 years. The farm has been in her family for 150 years, first of all. Second of all, the farm was given to her by her father. Okay, it is her inheritance. Okay, second of all. Third of all, she's so privileged and so well off that she can actually afford to sell the farm. And then get this, she's planning to move to her childhood home in Durban, another house that's been in her family for a very long time, where she's going to live out her days. Do you understand? So for me, in my opinion, Patricia really is the picture and the image of privilege. Okay, she's very very privileged. She didn't even have to. You're gonna hear, but the farm. The whole point of being given the farm, it was supposed to be like for livestock and for ponies, and they were gonna breed ponies and so on. The farm itself wasn't actually very successful at all. It didn't make them money at all, really. But it was a nice little comfy thing that they could live in that house for many many years, and they have a long history in that house. Also, just Gudrun was talking about how Patricia is like has so much entitlement. She's talking to Becky in this chapter, and they're talking about her father, and she says something along the lines at the end of this chapter, page 12. She says, she says about her father, he was the one good man in my life. Okay, he's the one person that actually looked after her in terms of leaving her with all this inheritance. And she also says about her father, Patricia says about her father, that he worked really hard. And that also comes back to often what guys, I'm not racist, hey? But white people often I'm gonna sound really racist. I'm gonna sound really racist, but Patricia says in this chapter that her father got everything that they have. She has everything that she has because her father worked very hard. Okay. And I'm going to share with you a blog post that talks about the Native Land Act, the Natives Land Act that happened in South Africa that started in the late 1800s into the 1900s. So there is an element of that that doesn't quite ring true. But she strongly believes that everything that her father worked for, or everything that her father has and got, he got from hard work. He just worked hard for it and he got it. And like often I was one of the other teachers in the department was talking about another grade. Let us not suspect what grade. But they were talking to another grade and they were talking about how a lot of the times in South Africa, we start like black people start on the back foot, and more often than not, white people start like ahead of everyone else. And some of these boys kept going, yeah, but if you just work hard and you just, you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you read that book and you read that book, you're going to be successful and you're going to make the money. But the thing is, if you look at Patricia, where she started with her dad that has like two properties that we know of. Okay. Waruna is reading Rich. Oh, funny enough, that guy declared bankruptcy. Not recently, but he did. Yes, Ryan. Yes, Ryan. So we can't just be like, oh, if you just believe in yourself and you just work really hard, you can make it. Look at that. Just in the air. Do you know what I mean? Let's talk about, yeah, yeah, yeah. So if we're talking about like I every Wednesday, our garbage gets picked up on Wednesdays. And they drove past the one time, or I drove past them, and I was like, oh my gosh, that truck smells. And it occurred to me, like, oh my gosh, that's my smell, essentially. That's one of my rubbish bins that's in there that smells so bad. And we often look down at the guys that do the garbage collection instead of being ashamed of ourselves. Like that's my mess that they're picking up. So anyway, so Patricia in this chapter, if you read it, it's not a very long chapter at all. She talks about her father and how much she admired her father, and she talks about how her father is the best man that was ever in her life. Okay. She also refers to a Mr. What's that guy that she's having an affair with? Oh, yes, Mr. Ford, who's a headmaster at one of the boarding schools in the area. Okay, so there is relevant, there is reference to different men that have been in her life, but they haven't had as huge an impact as her actual father. Okay, and also there is reference to her husband, and I think it's in this chapter where we actually learn that um, how they ended up having the farm is that Patricia actually got pregnant before she married Richard. She got pregnant by Richard. Her father did not approve of Richard at all. And the only reason why he allowed or he okayed them getting married was because she was pregnant. She got pregnant. So he's like, okay, well, make an honest woman out of my daughter. And then he gave them that farm to work to work it. Again, privilege. If I get knocked up, if I get knocked up, I'm on my own. I have to figure that thing out. Ain't nobody gonna give me property to get me started. When I was your age, when I was a teenager, my mom and I would sit in a taxi. We'd sit in a taxi and there would be like a mom and a daughter, and the mom would be carrying what appeared to be her granddaughter. And my mom would tap me on the shoulder and she's like, you see those two? You see that grandmother looking after that child? That's not going to be me if you ever got knocked up, okay? You're going to look after your own child. You're going to take care. And that actually scared me into not ever getting myself into that kind of trouble. Because if I did, I wouldn't have something to fall back on. It would completely be on me to handle. I mean, of course, yes, Siba. Siba? Yes. Okay. Um. All right. Okay. So in this chapter, let's move on from the whole privilege thing and stop judging white people. Um. So Patricia, so the farmhouse is described as, and I showed you the pictures, as you drive like a kilometer down like a dirt road before you get to the actual house, and that speaks to the theme of isolation. So a lot of the characters on this farmhouse in this novel have a sense of isolation. They feel very much isolated. I mean, you'll see as you read along, Richard has dementia, and half the time he doesn't know if they're dead, if everyone is dead or alive, and half the time he doesn't know where he is. And there's a sense of isolation and loneliness in that. Okay, he's isolated and he's lonely. There's Patricia who's living in disappointment. Her life is like this huge disappointment. It's not what she thought that it would be. Things didn't end up being as beautiful as they would be, and there's isolation and loneliness in that. Beauty knows this big secret. I mean, she's a worker, she's a domestic worker, and she's a helper. She's not very empowered, and there's loneliness in that as well. So the fact that this dream house, is sort of isolated and secluded from everything else around it, is not only for practical reasons because it's a farm, but it also speaks to the isolation that each of these characters experience. Okay. We learn in the chapter, I've already mentioned this, we learn in the chapter that Richard, Patricia's husband, has dementia. He often doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know what's going on. He's often going to the rest of the property looking for the animals. Um, like he doesn't know who he is. But what I notice about him already in the first chapter is that he has moments where he is lucid, where he actually is very aware and more aware than the people around him realize of what is going on. I just want to find it, and I'm really hoping it's in this chapter. From page 7, for example, they have a whole conversation, and Richard talks about, he asks where his father is, and Patricia says his father died 20 years ago, and he says, oh, but I just shared a cigarette with him just yesterday. Um, and they always laugh at him a little bit. They always they're a little bit amused by him at the fact that he doesn't really realize where he's at. But then where he is and what's happening and what time in life it is really. And then in page 8, he says something that struck me. It didn't like it, you don't notice it now until the whole truth comes out. This is like a almost like a it's not really it's a foreshadowing in that it's going to speak to some truth that happened in the past, in the future of this story. It says in on page 8, he talks about, yeah, are we dead? If we were dead, who would tell us? And they talk about how God would tell them that they're dead. And then uh he says, because it's coming. What is coming? Patricia says. The ambulance. I said I have 2 dead children for you to pick up. What do you mean two? You know what? No, I don't, Patricia says. You think I'm not here, but I am. There's something very important. If you've read ahead, quite close to the end, you'll know the significance of him saying this. I have 2 dead children for you to pick up. He says he has 2 dead children. Okay? Um, and then that's the first significant thing that he says. The second significant thing that he says, you know what? You think I'm not here, but I am. So he may be like, he's not talking about a physical, because obviously he's physically always present, but he's like, and he speaks also to the fact that he makes these little mistakes where he gets characters wrong and he thinks that his dad is still alive. And I think what he's saying is that you think I don't know what's going on, but I actually do. And sometimes he's Matthew? It's actually, we're going to talk about it in the next chapter, because according to Patricia, she actually is like, he was always mad even before he was actually mad. There was a madness about Richard long before he actually had dementia. Okay. Okay. So we'll get there. Um, so she speaks a little bit about her father. Okay, and then that chapter ends. Let me just see if I've missed anything notes wise. Isolation. We spoke about the fact that she's been having an affair with Mr. Ford. She's going to go see him that day. Um, okay, and we also know that Patricia was only married Richard because she got pregnant. I think that if she just loved him and she wanted to be with him, her father wouldn't have allowed it. He would have said no. All right. Then we get to the next chapter, which is Beauty's chapter. Okay, cool. What I found so striking about this chapter, if you go to the next chapter, it's on page 13. Look at the opening line about Beauty. Even now, she is afraid of Upas. I think that that's an important line to attach to Beauty. The first thing we learn about her is that even now, and them saying even now means that she's always been afraid of him. So even when he was of sound mind before the dementia kicked in, she was afraid of him. But even now, as someone who is like knee deep in dementia, she's still afraid of him. And for me, that speaks to the complexity of the employer-employee relationship. And it also strikes me that domestic workers, or people that work in your house, they know intimate details about you that you don't even know they know about you. Okay, and we'll see this. Waruna's like, what? No, she doesn't. Your helper has found the porn between your mattress and your base, Waruna. She knows about it. Hey? Oh, sorry. Is everything digital? Sorry. My bad. Maybe I thought that maybe I thought some of you were old school here. You know what I'm saying? So here is this person. So something that a friend of mine once said was domestic workers are so they know you so intimately. They cook your food, they wash your clothes, they look after your children, they feed your children. And think about this. In all of the oppression, all the slavery and all of that stuff, black people have never poisoned the people they work for. They've never like hey, never done anything to hurt them. I lived in a typical farm town where like the Afrikaans kids, even the English kids actually spoke Xhosa before they spoke their mother tongue. Like it was that deep. They used to eat. Why is that? Because they lived with their domestic workers. And you'll see in this Beauty chapter, for example, Beauty says that she's comfortable speaking isiZulu, right? So she speaks isiZulu to even Richard. And Richard understands because he's lived on the farm for so long. So eventually he understands, even though he doesn't respond in isiZulu. It's quite funny to me that she this person that she's so afraid of is also the person that she speaks in what is most comfortable. So she's able to be comfortable even in her being afraid of him. And for me, that also kind of speaks to how we normalize that dynamic. We normalize that dynamic so much. So these kids that I grew up that I grew up with and went to school with, they literally they ate. If I say to him, if I say to them, you're gonna have amasi and putu, for example. So yeah, amasi and krummelpap. They know exactly about it because they've spent the whole day with their domestic workers, and their domestic workers would feed them what they eat. If we talk about samp and beans, they know exactly because that's what they would eat as well as little kids. And obviously, as they got older, they would become whiter. So they would eat what they normally have. Okay, so in this chapter, because Beauty knows Richard so intimately because she looks after him, she talks in this chapter about how she knows his body almost better than she knows Patricia's body. Okay, in this chapter we see how she even helps him get dressed. At some point in the house, he's not wearing his pants. And so she goes and she finds his pants and she helps him put them on. Like she literally holds them while he steps into his pants and he puts them on. Okay. Like Richard is that confused. Richard is that helpless. And Richard needs Patricia that much. And Patricia even says in that in the first page of her chapter on page 13, it says he never seems to know what to do with she talks about how in the morning she wakes up when he wakes up he has a salute, a natural salute. If you don't know what that means, I can't help you. And he always feels quite awkward about it. He always feels quite awkward about it. And she says she's learned to ignore it. And what's interesting, she says, um, he never seems to know what to do with himself, and she chooses to ignore it, just as she has chosen to ignore every other shameful thing about him. Remember what I said, domestic workers know their employers so intimately. So she knows a lot of Richard's dirt, all the bad things about him. She knows a lot, and not only because she cleans his house. Not just because she cleans his house, not just because she looks after him now because of the dementia. So this is telling for us, where she says she ignores the erections he gets first thing in the morning, just like she ignores all the other shameful things about him. So that means that she knows a lot more, probably worse, and we'll see. Like those of you who've read further will know that there are much worse things to know about Richard than just the fact that that happens to him first thing in the morning. Okay. Sometimes Richard is so helpless that he calls Beauty mummy or mum. But I think that because she looks after him, she makes sure that he's fed. There's one scene here where he can't find his pants, and when she says to him in Zulu, she says, "Let's go find your pants and I'll help you put them on." And she takes his hand. So there's an element of trust there where he lets her take his hand, um, and and they walk to where the pants are, and she helps him put the pants on. So he really looks after her the way that a mother would look after a child. So it's not just indicative of his confusion, it's also indicative of that he understands that this woman looks after me in the most primitive, nurturing way possible. How crazy is it that someone that you're afraid of, you also look after to that extent? Okay. And we are going to learn a little bit later. We are going to learn a little bit later why she's actually afraid of him. Okay. On page 14, we see that. So one would think, like when you read the first couple of lines of the first half of this chapter, you'd think because Richard is so vulnerable, because he needs so much help, because he's so weak, you would think that Beauty has some kind of power over him. Remember, we spoke about power dynamics, right? You would think that she has a power over him. But she says on page 14, even today, when he can hardly even dress himself, they both know that he is the one with the power over her and that he will never let either of them forget it. That's another indication that Richard has dementia, but he's lucid. He knows what's going on. He knows who's boss and who's not. Okay. So he has moments of clarity. Okay. Um, and then, like in the middle of page 14, she says, there is always a bit of good in everything, even Ubas. So again, I said to you, she knows shameful, shameful, shameful things about him, but she still sees the good in him. And that's probably why she still looks after him. And look at how many times she's left alone with him, and she could actually just leave him and not look after him and not care about him, and she still does. Okay. So in Beauty, there is an element of I don't know what I was gonna say. Sorry. Okay. We spoke about the fact at the bottom of page 14, whenever she's alone with Ubasi, she speaks in isiZulu. It's not to confuse him. He understands her exactly, even if he doesn't understand much else. Speaking isiZulu is so much easier for her. It's something that she can slip into like a song. And this is hard for us as Black people to relate to because we can very easily just translate and speak in English. If you think about it, do you guys think Black kids and second language, Neil, Heineke, Geldernes, how many of you do you guys think in English or Afrikaans if you think about it? So why don't I admit that he thinks in English? Kutlwano, do you think in English? Neil, Geldenese, Afrikaans, all day, every day. That's why he makes so many mistakes, is because up here it's Afrikaans. Heineke, what language are you thinking? English. Heineke is the Afrikaans boy that's in denial about being Afrikaans. So he thinks in English. Kabir, you think in English. Do you speak another language at home? So sometimes, because I live alone, sometimes I speak to myself because I need a lot of wisdom and I'm very wise. Sometimes I catch sometimes I catch myself saying things in Xhosa actually, and I'm quite impressed with myself when that happens. Like if I lose something, I say to myself, inoba ipilando, which means like, I wonder where I put it. Yesterday I couldn't find my potato peeler, and I was like, how does a potato peeler just disappear? And I caught myself saying it in Xhosa. So every once in a while I get moments where I'm like, ha, I do think in my mother tongue. Um, I definitely swear in English. I definitely swear in English. Ah, I'm still a coconut. Is that what you're saying? Anyway, so Beauty does not speak isiZulu to Richard to confuse him. Okay, she speaks to him in isiZulu because that's what comes easily for her. So that also tells me if she speaks isiZulu, that's the thing that rolls off her tongue without thinking. So again, this man that she is so terrified of is also the person that she's comfortable with. She's comfortable enough to just speak isiZulu to him without thinking. Okay. This is significant at the end of this chapter, just in the last minutes of this class. She puts his pants on, right? At the end of page 15. She helps him put his pants on. And then she says it in English. She says, pull up your zip. She says in English. And then she says, it has always been a joke among the workers. If it's a joke among the workers, this is just another indication of how much workers know about you, employees, employers, and people we clean up after, and so on. We know intimate details about them that we make private jokes about it. And when you think you're being discreet, you ain't discreet. They know. Okay? It has always been a joke among the workers. Upas is the one who can never keep his zip up. What does this imply about him? He's a hoe. Okay, so he is very sexually promiscuous. Okay, well, not at this point because he has dementia. But when he was younger, he was probably very, very promiscuous. When he says nothing and doesn't move, she leans forward and pulls it up herself. Okay. So, in other words, and for me, this is so significant in the fact that if he doesn't do anything to pull up his literal zip, that means that he refused to change how he is. And so someone else had to step in and pull up his zip, pull up his metaphorical zip. Okay. Okay. I've said all of this stuff. Okay. So those are the two chapters that I wanted to cover today in terms of what we pick up. Just in the last 2 minutes, I just want to hear from someone who hasn't spoken. Heineke, for example, what stuck out to you in today's conversation? What made you go, whoa? Everything. I mean, she was around since you were what, 4 years old? Yeah, so yeah, that's crazy. Anyone else who's being quiet? Kamva? Kamva? Kamva's going to have breakfast. Like, I'm done here. We're done here. Dale, what has stuck out for you? Yeah. Oh, the fact that beauty, like if I was in beauty's shoes, I mean, this would be my moment of revenge, especially considering what has actually happened, the truth of what actually happened. Like she has every right to actually take her power back, and I would spend my last time looking after Richard, like punishing him. I really would. I would let him walk around without his pants on. I would let him walk around with his zip down and his member sticking out. Do you know what I mean? Like I would totally just like not look after him, considering what he did. And some of you, Miles, she, Ishbra, but you know, now's not the time for morality. All right, the period is up. You guys can go, except for Inam. We're going to carry on. I'm going to try and cover 2 or 3 chapters tomorrow. These are very, very short chapters. So if you still haven't started the novel, sit for an hour today. It won't take you more than an hour to read these 3 chapters. I promise. Okay. And those 4 or 5 gents that are supposed to come after school, please be here at 20 past 2 because Jim is life and Mama needs to go get her body. So be on time. 20 past 1. 1. 20 past 1. 20 past 1. Kutlana, I feel like you hurt me back. Like this was the opportunity for you. This is an opportunity for you to be nice to me. Let me stop recording so you can say what you like. Hold on. I want to hear this so I can cry on my own.